Dexter Morgan killed 149 people, and his world was defined by secrecy, precision, and a strict moral code. Yet Dexter did not always follow his own rules perfectly. Over the course of the show's 8 seasons, there were 7 occasions where Dexter regretted killing. In this video, we're going to examine Dexter's most regretted murders. These were the times when he broke Harry's code or acted out in raw emotion, leaving him troubled, haunted, and forever changed. Let us know at the end if you agree with this list. Our first example of a kill Dexter deeply regretted was his accidental murder of Oscar Prado. This incident stands out because it occurred at a critical turning point in Dexter's life and forced him to confront the possibility that Harry's code could fail him, or that he could fail the code. Oscar Prado, the younger brother of Assistant District Attorney Miguel Prado, was not a killer. He was a troubled individual, certainly, but he did not fit Dexter's criteria. The situation unfolded when Dexter targeted a low-level drug dealer named Freebo, who had slipped through the system after murdering 2 young women. Harry's code justified killing someone like Freebo, a murderer who would likely kill again. Dexter tracked Freebo to a house, intending to execute him, but inside, he encountered chaos. Oscar Prado had arrived the same time, hoping to confront Freebo and bring him to justice in his own way. In the confusion, Oscar attacked Dexter with a bayonet.
Who are you?
Acting on instinct and self-preservation, Dexter fought back, and before he realized what he'd done, he stabbed Oscar to death. In that moment, Dexter knew he had made a grievous error. Oscar was not on his table. Oscar was not proven to be a murderer. Oscar's death came not from meticulous planning or moral justification, but from panic and miscalculation. The aftermath weighed heavily on Dexter. He found himself unnerved, even shaken. He attended Oscar's funeral under the guise of supporting the Prado family, but secretly, he was hoping to gather some justification that Oscar was not innocent. But the truth became undeniable. Oscar did not deserve the fate Dexter dealt him. This even rattled Dexter's sense of control. For the first time, he had killed someone who did not meet the code's standards. By ending Oscar's life, Dexter realized there were times he could not even trust himself. If he could kill someone like Oscar by mistake, what did that say about his sense of purpose? Oscar's death also had a profound chain of events. It led Dexter into a complex friendship with Miguel Prado, who sought the Bay Harbor butcher's help, unaware that Dexter himself was responsible for Oscar's death. The guilt ate away at Dexter quietly, reminding him that no matter how hard he tried, he could not undo what he had done. Oscar Prado's murder was the first major crack in Dexter's carefully constructed moral armor. Camilla Figg's death was not the typical scenario you might imagine when talking about regret. She was not a killer Dexter hunted, nor was she a victim who stumbled upon his secret. Camilla was a longtime family friend. She worked in the records department at Miami Metro and had known Harry, Doris, Deborah, and Dexter since he was a child. She was dying of terminal lung cancer, suffering constant pain, and begged Dexter for a merciful end. On the surface, Camilla's death wasn't a murder in the traditional sense. Dexter did not kill her out of rage or to protect his secret. He killed her as an act of mercy and compassion, providing her with a poisoned slice of key lime pie to help her escape her suffering. But from Dexter's perspective, this was a profound violation of Harry's code. Camilla was not a killer. She was an innocent woman seeking peace. The code never intended for Dexter to take the life of someone who didn't deserve it. By helping Camilla end her life, Dexter stepped far outside his usual pattern of killing only murderers.
Are you sure? I'm sure.
This forced Dexter to confront a type of killing he never accounted for, mercy killings. But this also meant he could no longer claim to be a machine who killed solely under moral guidelines. He had killed someone who did not fit the code at all. This left Dexter uneasy. By helping Camilla die, Dexter tasted the bittersweet truth that he was changing, that he was capable of caring, and that his choices had moral weight beyond simple kill or don't kill decisions. A moment of tenderness that contradicted everything Harry's code stood for. Jonathan Farrow was a photographer who specialized in edgy S&M-inspired art. Dexter suspected him of killing models for his twisted amusement. The evidence Dexter uncovered, bizarre photographs, disturbing artwork, and abusive behavior, convinced him that Farrow was a predator deserving of the code's ultimate punishment. Acting on what he believed to be solid evidence, Dexter abducted Farrow, set up his kill room, and confronted him. Pharaoh pleaded his innocence, insisting that Dexter had it all wrong. But of course, nearly all of Dexter's victims protest their innocence before the knife came down. Dexter killed Pharaoh and disposed of the body, initially feeling that he had removed another monster from the world. But then the truth emerged. Shortly after the deed was done, Dexter learned that the actual murderer was Pharaoh's assistant.
Isn't that?
Pharaoh's assistant. I just arrested him for the murder of Estrella Carazo.
But no, I thought.
Yeah. At first it looked like Pharaoh, but this is airtight. We got DNA evidence, we got everything.
Jonathan Pharaoh, while morally questionable in his treatment of others, was not actually a killer. This revelation shook Dexter profoundly. He once again had violated the very core of Harry's code by killing an innocent man. Worse, Dexter's process had failed him. He had grown complacent, trusting circumstantial evidence and personal disgust over the absolute proof the code demanded.
Killed an innocent man.
By taking Pharaoh's life in error, Dexter had to face the uncomfortable truth. Far from the coldly rational predator he imagined himself to be, Dexter was capable of making grave moral errors. Afterwards, Dexter feared being discovered, yes, but more so, he feared what it meant about himself. If he could kill an innocent man, was he truly any better than the criminals he hunted? This regret gnawed at Dexter, influencing his actions moving forward. He became more cautious, more obsessed with verifying his victim's guilt, yet also more aware that no system, even Harry's code, was foolproof. What do you think? Did Jonathan Pharaoh deserve to be wrapped in plastic and brutally killed? Rankin was a classic case of wrong place, wrong time. In the immediate aftermath of Rita's murder at the hands of the Trinity Killer, Dexter found himself adrift in a sea of grief, confusion, and unimaginable pain. He had believed he could maintain a normal family life while indulging his dark passenger under controlled conditions. Trinity's shocking act shattered that illusion, leaving Dexter overwhelmed by a storm of emotions he could barely control. In this emotional turmoil, Dexter encountered a small-time thug named Rankin at a rundown store by the waterfront. Rankin taunted Dexter at the worst possible time, hurling insults without the slightest understanding of who the he was messing with. Normally, Dexter would have ignored such nonsense. Rankin was not a murderer, not a target worth pursuing. But Dexter was in a fragile, unstable state. Consumed by rage, grief, and guilt over Rita's death, he snapped. Without planning, without adhering to Harry's code, Dexter followed Rankin into a restroom and viciously killed him, using a grappling hook to brutally end the man's life. This was a raw, impulsive kill completely out of character for the meticulous, code-following Dexter. Immediately after the kill, Dexter realized how far he had strayed. The code was not even in the picture. This was pure emotional release, a scream of pain given lethal form. And this frightened him, and made him question whether he would become a monster without any rules at all. Still grieving from Rita's death, Dexter's journey took a strange detour when he traveled to Nebraska after learning that Jonah Mitchell, Trinity's son, might have killed again. During this trip, Dexter was haunted by visions of his brother Brian Moser, the ice truck killer, who represented Dexter's darkest urges, freed from the constraints of Harry's code. Under Brian's imaginary influence, Dexter became more reckless and impulsive. One such impulsive act was the murder of Norm, the owner of the Shady Lane Motel where Dexter stayed. Norm discovered Dexter's kill tools and foolishly attempted to blackmail him for money, threatening Dexter's secrecy. Normally, Dexter would have weighed his options carefully, considered non-lethal solutions, or at least ensured Norm fit the code. But under the sway of his own inner darkness, personified by Brian's phantom, Dexter acted swiftly and brutally. He killed Norm without the ritual, without careful consideration, and without the justification that Norm was a murderer. Dexter eventually rejected Brian's influence, but the damage had been done. Much like Rankin's death, Norm's murder left Dexter with a heavy sense of regret. It was another instance of crossing a line Harry's code was supposed to prevent him from crossing. Andrew Briggs was a low-level criminal who had crossed paths with Deb during her stint as a private investigator. While not exactly a saint, Briggs was not a serial killer or an active predator that fit Dexter's code. When Dexter confronted Briggs, a violent struggle ensued. In that heated moment, Dexter ended Briggs' life in self-defense, but not in the controlled, code-sanctioned manner he usually prided himself on. The kill left Dexter unsettled. Even though Briggs was dangerous, he had not properly vetted against the code. Dexter's sense of regret here stemmed from killing out of necessity and chaos rather than methodical justice. It showed again how easily Dexter could be forced off the moral high ground when the situation turned dire. Furthermore, Briggs's death occurred during a time when Dexter was questioning whether he could leave killing behind altogether. If he was truly ready to run away with Hannah and Harrison, to abandon the code and his dark passenger, why was he still killing men like Briggs? Was he truly capable of change? Or was he fated to always return to violence whenever push came to shove? Briggs's murder highlighted Dexter's inability to escape his old life and his dark instincts. Perhaps the most heartbreaking murder Dexter commits, and undoubtedly the one he would regret until his dying day, is the mercy killing of his beloved sister, Deborah Morgan. Unlike all the other entries on this list, Deb's death at Dexter's hands was not about preserving a secret, not about eliminating a criminal, and not about losing control. It was a moment of profound love and despair. Deborah, after being shot by Oliver Saxon, suffered a severe stroke that left her in a vegetative state. The doctors warned that she would never recover meaningful brain function. Dexter, who loved Deb more than anyone, had to face an impossible decision. He could leave Deb in that state, allow her to live but never truly recover, or he could end her suffering. In one of the most emotionally devastating scenes of the entire series, Dexter disconnects Deb from life support. He cradles her in his arms, speaks softly to her,
I love you, Deb.
and carries her body out to sea before dropping her into the dark waters. This was not a kill driven by the code. Deb was innocent, a victim of circumstance, and the one person who truly mattered most to Dexter. This was the moment that broke Dexter completely, convincing him that everyone he loved would be destroyed by his presence, and that he was too toxic to remain in their lives. Dexter's subsequent decision to fake his own death and live in self-imposed exile as a lumberjack showed the depth of his regret. Deb's death was the final straw, the ultimate reminder that no matter his intentions, he brought pain and death to those closest to him. He would forever carry the regret of Deb's murder because it was not just a killing, it was the destruction of the only true family bond he had left. When we think of Dexter Morgan, we often picture a controlled, methodical killer who lives by a strict code that justifies his actions. But as we've seen in the cases of Oscar Prado, Camilla Fig, Jonathan Farrow, Rankin, Norm the motel owner, Andrew Briggs, and ultimately Deborah Morgan, the reality is far more complex. Dexter's adherence to Harry's code did not prevent him from making terrible mistakes, acting on impulse, or crossing moral lines he had no business crossing. Let us know if you would have added anyone else to the list. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.